Most people think deep sleep happens simply because they're tired. It doesn't. Deep sleep happens when your brain believes the environment is safe enough to shut down vigilance. And the hormone that largely decides that is cortisol. Cortisol is often misunderstood. People treat it like the stress hormone, but biologically it functions more like a timing hormone. Its real job is to regulate alertness across the 24-hour circadian cycle. In a healthy rhythm, cortisol spikes in the morning to wake you up and gradually declines throughout the day. By night, it should be near its lowest point. That drop is what allows the brain to enter deep sleep. When cortisol stays elevated at night, the brain interprets the environment as potentially unsafe. So, it delays deep sleep. You may fall asleep, but the brain refuses to fully power down. To understand how to lower cortisol at night, you first have to understand the deeper system controlling it. The hidden system behind cortisol. Cortisol is controlled by a three-part system called the HPA axis: hypothalamus, pituitary gland, adrenal glands. This system constantly evaluates your environment for signals of threat or safety. When the brain perceives stress, the hypothalamus releases CRH. CRH signals the pituitary gland. The pituitary then signals the adrenal glands, and the adrenal glands release cortisol. This entire cascade can happen in seconds. But here's the important part. The brain does not distinguish well between physical threat and psychological stimulation. Late-night emails, overthinking, social media arguments, bright artificial light. To the HPA axis, these can all look like survival signals. So cortisol stays elevated long after the sun goes down. The circadian clock that controls cortisol. Your cortisol rhythm is synchronized by a structure in the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This tiny cluster of neurons sits inside the hypothalamus and acts as the master clock of the body. It receives direct information from the eyes about light exposure. When morning light hits the retina, the clock signals the body to increase cortisol. This is called the cortisol awakening response. But the same clock must also lower cortisol at night. And that only happens when the brain receives consistent signals of darkness and safety. If those signals are inconsistent, cortisol declines more slowly, which delays deep sleep. Why deep sleep requires low cortisol? Deep sleep occurs during slow-wave sleep. In this stage, the brain produces large, synchronized delta waves. Neural activity slows dramatically. Metabolic waste is cleared from brain tissue. Growth hormone is released. Memory networks reorganize. But slow-wave sleep requires the brain to disengage from threat monitoring, and cortisol directly interferes with that process. High cortisol keeps the brain's locus coeruleus active. The locus coeruleus releases norepinephrine, which maintains alertness. As long as this system remains active, the brain cannot fully enter deep sleep. So even if you're technically asleep, your brain remains partially on guard. That leads to shallow, fragmented sleep. The three major triggers of nighttime cortisol. Most people unknowingly elevate cortisol late at night through three systems: light, cognition, and temperature. Each of these systems feeds information into the brain about whether it's safe to power down. The light signal. Light is the most